Hello. I've been asked by Deacon Butcher to talk about what um, prison volunteers, and I guess specifically in this case, Episcopal prison volunteers, have meant to me in my life. My name is Bo Cox. This is like many of us are recognizing during this COVID experience. I have a hard time sometimes remembering what day it is, even though I'm working regularly. I work in a psych hospital and am considered an essential employee there, and it's an essential service. So I've been going in throughout the process, but am off today and sitting in my backyard, been mowing. It is May of 2020. Next month, June 12th, will mark 17 years since I left prison, and wow. It's a bit emotional when I realize that 17 years is what I spent in prison. I was convicted in 1986 of killing another young man in a drunken fight, and was guilty and needed to go to prison and needed to get my life together. And I didn't know it at that point that I needed to get my life together. I thought I was a victim. I thought life was treating me unfair. At any rate, had a pretty substantial drug and alcohol problem that I didn't come to grips with until I'd been in prison about 4 years. At that time, I was fortunate enough to once I saw that the first thing that I recognized was that I could not get high and not get in trouble, and that had not been news to anybody but me for a long time. This was evident since I'd been about 10th grade in high school when I started getting high and drinking. However, as it is with addiction, oftentimes the people that suffer from addiction are the last ones to be able to see the truth. And I really didn't understand that the problem was wearing my tennis shoes, as I like to say sometimes. So I was fortunate enough to be able to get into treatment while I was in prison. And the treatment, there's Episcopal veins running all through this. I was confirmed and baptized in the Episcopal Church and cradle Episcopalian, and served as an acolyte in my my tweens. Anyway, I gotten way away from that and got sober and got ready to try to get sober. And there was a treatment center, and it was actually funded by a thanks offering from the Episcopal Church women. And it was during that time in my early sobriety that I began to come into contact with prison volunteers, and I'd like to talk about 3 of them that had a profound impact on my life, and there's more. I ended up getting back in Episcopal services and going to services that were being held there, and along with lots of other avenues where I pursued my recovery and getting my life together. But the first person that comes to mind when I was thinking about this was Evelyn Bibbins. And Evelyn would come in and was a volunteer with the Lifeline program. And what I remember about Evelyn was she treated me like I was her son, and would just spend time with me and treated me like I was a normal person. And I never will forget that. And I firmly believe that had I not had that initial contact with Evelyn, who treated me not like I was a prisoner, not like I was a convicted murderer, not like there was something wrong with me, but like a young man who had gone astray, I think that played a big part in me beginning to act like, I don't want to say normal, but just, not not like the person who I'd been acting like for most of my addiction. One day I was sitting there on the yard and I was daydreaming, and I was daydreaming about being out and eating somewhere in the free world with Evelyn. And I don't know where we were eating, but it was the first normal it was the first normal daydream or fantasy that I had had since I was, before I was a teenager. And I realized at that point that I'd turned a corner. No more were my wishes and desires and daydreams about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So it was a big turning point for me. And the next person I'd like to talk about is Claudine Hoover. And Claudine came in and with the Episcopal. She also came in with Lifeline, but she came in with the Episcopal Church on Sunday evening services. She helped teach EFM. She just did everything. She came in ice storms. She was the body of Christ to so many lost young men that I can't even begin to count them, and just had a profound impact on people's lives. And one of the most special moments that I had was when I got out. I went to St. Michael's, and it might have been St. John's, I don't remember. Anyway, one of the two Episcopal churches in Norman, and my first time out, and first Sunday out of prison, and I was like a wild animal. I was in shock. It was just completely overwhelming being out of prison, and they started singing, and everything just moved me to tears. It moves me to tears talking about it. Anyway, I remember when the offering came down, and I saw ramen soups in the offering basket, and oh my goodness, it just got me. And that was kind of a staple of our diet in there, those ramen soups, and that got me. And just the choir, but nothing got me like when I went up to receive communion, and I had my head down, I had my hands up, and when I felt the wafer being placed in my hand, I looked up, and it was Claudine who was handing me the wafer. And it was really, really powerful, and it helped me know that I belonged out here, and that it was okay for me to be out here, because I struggle with that. Hell, I still do. So then the third person I'd like to talk about is George Day. And George was a deacon from St. Mary's, I believe, in Edmond, and came down and did services for a long time and went all over. I think he was served as the prison diaconate, if that's the right term, prison minister. And George had every reason in the world to hate people in prison, because he had lost a daughter to a senseless, violent crime. And instead of that, he came in and he loved us. And that sermon was all the sermon I needed to hear, or see, actually. Not hear, just see. But I could still sit and listen to George talk for days, because he had that deep voice. And sometimes you thought, that might be what God sounds like, listening to George. So, that's just in a nutshell quickly. They said like 5 or 10 minutes of what prison ministry means to people in prison. And I think in a nutshell, what prison ministry means to people in prison are two things. One is we get to see the face of Jesus in people who bring love and acceptance and healing and forgiveness to us when we're in prison. And the other is we get to remember that we are people in prison. And oftentimes that's something that we've forgotten somewhere along our journey. And profoundly impacted my life. I'm sitting in my backyard, 20 acres east of Norman. My wife's inside. And anyway, I love you guys. I love the Episcopal Church. And thank you for asking me to share a little bit. Peace.